like walking around, it's good for me. Could you tell me where we could go eat? Take me to the good times. I just gotta get out most days, you see. I like walking around, it's good for me. Could you tell me where we could go eat? Take me to the good times. Summer's in Brooklyn, women in age, shaking hands on the rooftop on the MLK. Springtime in London, fall in Tokyo. I fall in love more every time I go, yeah. When the sun comes out in Portland, I'm talking Oregon and Maine. Might stick around until the weather change. Just gotta get out most days, you see. I like walking around, it's good for me. Could you tell me where we could go eat? Take me to the good times. I just gotta get out most days, you see. I like walking around, it's good for me. Could you tell me where we could go eat? Take me to the good times. Try to hang like a local. Could you tell me where to go? Put a corn in the jukebox at the hole in the wall. Grab the hills in Chicago. I'ma pass on number Lord and take a recommendation for a good grab ball. When the sun comes out in Portland, y'all, I'm talking Oregon and Maine.
Okay, good morning, everyone. Good morning, Susy.
Good morning.
This is Coffee with Leaders. My name is Fernando Montoya. I'm your host today. And Susy Martins, she's my guest today. Thank you very much for accepting my invitation today. How are you, Susy, today?
I'm good. I'm good. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you very much. I was very excited when you accepted the invitation because I follow you in LinkedIn and I love the job that you do there and what you are doing actually in the company that you're running right now. So good morning to everyone who is connected. Right now we have 12 people connected at this point. Welcome to Coffee with Leaders. This is a informal and very personal space in which we share our experiences as leaders. And also I would like to welcome the people, as this is going to be recorded. I would like to welcome the people who are watching the video afterwards. And before we start, I encourage people who are connected to share with us, also join us in the chat, putting comments and questions and things like that. So let's get started. Again, thank you very much, Susy. So usually the first question that I ask my guests here, as I describe it as a very personal space, is asking who you are. Who is Susy Martins? So you can share that with us.
Who is Susy Martins? That's a really deep question.
It is indeed.
Yeah. I think the Cole's notes from because this is a leader discussion is really, I'm from Canada. I grew up like taking at business school, taking languages, English and French and Spanish. So my Spanish is okay. My French is poor. So that died over time. Anyways, and then, spent a long time in corporate, working globally, worked around 20 countries, working in different spaces like customer service, finance, audit, and then eventually shifted into ops and HR, all during like a corporate stint. And then, so I worked half of that time in Europe and then back in Canada. From there, last 5 years, I've been in the tech sphere. So I was chief people for two different unicorns, and then now started my own thing. So I have a boutique HR consulting company right now, focused the kind of half on HR due diligence and then half on executive coaching. So that's the Cole's notes, and 2 kids, married, domesticated, just outside of Toronto. So
great, thank you very much for sharing that with us. It's very interesting everything that you have done, even traveling around the world and living in some other countries. So as you said, that this is a leadership space, and you were in the corporate life for more than 15 years, and also being a top executive in different areas, as you said. I have my coffee here because this is Coffee with Leaders. I think you also have
a Canadian one. So you guys see like a Timmy's. So this is legit. I am in Canada.
Yeah, so enjoy it. I'm enjoying it. And I hope the people who are joining us are enjoying a coffee too. So you were in the corporate life for more than 15 years. You were a top level executive. So, and being this a leadership space, what I believe about leadership is that as leaders, we are in a continuous evolution all the time, trying to become more effective every day. So I would like to start with a very specific question here. So for you, and let's talk about what it means to be an effective leader.
Hmm. I think to be an effective leader, you're probably the most important thing is that you uphold the company values, right? That you are essentially the steward of, just how things run in the organization. The organization counts on its leaders to be its front line on, bringing the goals forward, bringing the energy towards what they're trying to do, demonstrating what's acceptable, what's not acceptable, right? So I think that's what it means to be a leader. And to be effective, I think that, you need to be able to motivate people to, want to be working towards that vision and goal in the organization.
Wonderful. And yeah, I agree with you. Sharing the company values and being an example usually. And what we hear about leaders is that we lead by example, and that's what people follow leaders and things like that. And that goes with the motivation and what you're saying, trying to be towards the vision of the company. And also, the only thing that I would like to add here is that sometimes and nowadays people are talking a lot about these things about psychological safety and things like that. But we always have to keep in mind the values for the company that you said. But as leaders, we are expected to deliver results in the end. We are there to deliver results, to have our teams motivate them, have the energy that you talked about, and also deliver the results. If we don't deliver results, then there's no, and that's the alignment that we have with the vision. Okay, great. Um, I shared your definition about that, and we need to be all the time working on our awareness, on our effectiveness to be more effective day to day. So, as in this space, we share our experiences. I would like you to share, and also I can complement with that with my experience.
Mhm.
How was that journey on the leadership, the evolution on your leadership? Because you started 15 years, top level executive around the world, many areas. And it really amazed me because you switch between areas. So how was that journey for starting the leadership journey and being more effective every day?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think everyone has like their own journey, right? And I
Yeah.
think mine is I started out working in a lot of functional areas, right? So I worked in finance was the first time I think I was a leader, and everyone's similar in finance, right? And same thing in HR. Like if you are running an HR team or a finance team, basically people are pretty specialized in that subject matter, right? So they work a certain way. There's certain rules, like what I mean. And people generally, know those definitions. It's pretty clear. Then when I moved to operations, I was leading teams of like, I think my first ops team I had 70 people. They were half in Canada and half in the Philippines. And then I had other teams that were global that were like 300 and then like up to 1,000 people in different teams. And I think that like my leadership evolved over time a lot because I worked in ops. And I say that I'm better at anything from a leadership perspective because I led operations teams, because there isn't this homogeneous, like everybody's a finance person that knows how to reconcile and can do different things, was trained a certain way. Same thing with HR, like everybody knew that discipline. In ops, I always say you could have someone who dropped out of high school and an astronaut on your team. You could have anyone on your team, right? And all different ages, all different backgrounds, and everybody, and it's always work that generally people don't want to do, that nobody dreams about claims processing, you know what I mean? But it's so important. Like if you have a claim that needs to be processed, you know what I mean? You go on vacation and you have an incident and you want to get your money back. That's important to you, right? So it serves an important function, but it's like, how do you get people aligned to that vision? And how do you get them motivated to come to work when, it's a career track that most people fall into versus target? So you do a lot of reps, right? Like you're in ops, you have big teams, like life happens to people, right? And there's so many different scenarios of just anything can happen, why someone won't be at work or won't feel well, won't feel safe, like, or will have conflicts, or, will quit all of a sudden, or, like all their career strategizing, and then also trying to get the work done, right? Because all of these ops areas are very much dependent on doing so many things in so much time, right? Or like changing things, but still doing everything on time, right? So there's a lot of pressure there. and a lot of work and a lot of complexity in systems. So I think as a leader, I think there's no better training ground. Like if you really want to practice being a strong leader, work in ops, right? It's how things get done. It's, you know, where the rubber hits the road in terms of like actually operationalizing a lot of these things people talk about, their strategy or services that are offered by organizations. So yeah, I would say it's the toughest, but it's very rewarding too, right? So
Yeah, very, very interesting. And this is kind of the first time that somebody talks a lot about the operations from the beginning of the journey for the leadership. And I totally agree with you, because
yeah.
one of the things that transmits the trust to the team is that the leader not knows what it's doing. That is something. Well, it's not everything, but it's a part. Because if you're working for a leader, that you say, this person doesn't know what he's or she's talking about, then people are not going to buy in. And buying on what you said, the motivation, the values, the vision, and everything.
Mm-hmm.
How was that experience about working on operations? Because I think and you mentioned it at the end. It's tough being on the operations there. It's tough. It's demanding. So how was that experience as a leader, as working there, and the interaction with all the other people in operations?
Yeah. I think when you start, at least my journey was, it's humbling, right? Because you think, right? You're used to dealing with like A-type players, like in the teams I was running. And then, like I said, you get everyone on your team. And I think too, like just because so much stuff happens, because there's so many people and so many things to get done, you become pretty creative, right? Like at first you try to problem solve something and you're like, okay, textbook answer, I should do this, and I see this on LinkedIn a lot, like, oh, you need to do this and align to that and whatever. And it's true. But like when you're sitting there with someone and something has happened, or someone quits, and then, you're trying to figure out like, how are we going to get this done? Like ops, generally, like the dynamics I've worked in is like all of the leaders will work together. And they're all good problem solvers. I learned that from my peers and from my boss. Like, okay, what about this? What about that? What about this? What about that? And I think this is such a valuable skill set. And I think for me, I'm a good brainstormer this way, and I'll always try to brainstorm because I think I had a lot of practice, and I appreciate it. And you could see good ideas come from anywhere. So I think it's humbling. I think you get smarter. You learn to think a different way. So yeah, I'm a big proponent of definitely trying it out. You know what I mean? Like go and try to get stuff done. But you definitely get thrown in over your head. Like your first day in ops for me, every job, I already had 200 emails my first day. They're just like, welcome to the team, check your email. I'm gonna die, right? And then you just figure it out, right? You just keep on getting it done. You figure out who are the right people. And yeah, there's always so much like, what if we did this? Like, move this person here, move that person there, move these things. Or what if we deleted this and did this, this, and this? You're doing that every day, every single day. Or you're figuring out like how to communicate, right? Like if something's happening, you're changing an area, you're eliminating something, you're adding something. How do you communicate that in the right way so that everybody can get aligned, right? That you've kind of covered off most people's concerns and thoughtfully, right? Because everybody still remains there after the change. Well,
yeah, lovely. I love what you described about operations. My experience, I've been those persons that you described at the beginning, because I specialize in finance all the time. But in my experience, when I go to the operations, because we need to go, and if we are not working on the operations, we need to know how the company operates. That's one big thing. So I like going to the field, seeing the people working, talking to them. And that's where the ideas, innovation ideas and improvement ideas come, because they are the ones who are doing the job. And I agree with you with the humbling experience, because we need to be humble there, because it's people with a lot of experience that are teaching us a lot. And I love that. One thing that really like about going to the operations is that when I go there, as I'm not in operations, these people are so eager and happy to teach me. That's wonderful. That's wonderful, because anytime that we go there to the operations, the people, they show you the operations, the processes, the equipments, everything, and they really want to teach you and show you how they operate and how the company operates. And that's wonderful, because that interaction, it's really provides value for the company very, very much. And also I would like to pick something that you talked about, which is the communication between everyone, because in the end the organizations are run by human beings, and we human beings, everything is about the connections, the communications, and and everything. Machines are there, but they are run by human beings. So we as leaders, something that we have to do is provide the environment and the conditions so people can communicate and things like that. So great. What an interesting journey going to operations. I didn't do it that way, but I like going to the operations, and I agree with you. I never describe it as a humbling experience, but I'm with you with that. Thank you for bringing that up because it's very important. Because also when you say that, you give the importance of these people who are actually there on the operation. They're
Well,
very, very, very important.
you can never underestimate how much someone knows that like does something like adjudicating a claim or like processing or setting up something in a system. When you go through their manuals, the amount of time and experience it takes to understand, because it seems like it should be easy. You probably go in there and think, oh, it must be easy, like to do all this stuff. Like, definitely not. It's like usually like, the result of like 100 years of a company that acquired many other companies, that services many other companies, that nothing is standardized, right? It's not like they were built yesterday, most of the companies, right? So yeah, that's what drives a lot of the complexity. And the last thing I'll say, just because you remind me like about like, that we are human, like ops gives you the comms practice for sure, dealing with employee issues for sure, and the creativity, I think. And those are all things like, you talk about AI in the future. Like I tell my kids all the time, as like creativity is going to be the differentiator, period, in the future. Because, AI, most of the things we do today and we have to think about, they can just source, right? Like, or even today, you can source most information, right? Information is just going to be in a repository. You learn some skills how to pull it. Now, for you to actually be able to like creatively think about how to do stuff, you need practice, right? Like, and you need to hone those skills. Like, I think we don't practice our creativity as much as like when we were children, like when I grew up, I don't see it as much anymore. And I think that those environments, like people are like, wow, you thought of this or that, do people work there? But it's like, honestly, it's because they practice. No one else practices that hard, right? Like in changing in the workplace, I don't think than an ops area.
Yeah, that's great that you bring that up about the creativity and the AI, because the creativity it really superposes the AI, because the AI it learns from the data,
Hmm.
and then it creates. But if it doesn't have any data, it doesn't create. We human beings, we can create from nothing, from just define what we want to get in the future. That's great. And as you mentioned about the children and when we were kids, that it was different because we were learning all the time creativity. I remember all in my childhood when with the friends how we created all these games that were totally out of nothing and very fun. Yeah, creativity, very, very important. Let's move to another terrain. Right now, you're working in your own business. And what you do, if I understood correctly, as you said in your profile, you work a lot in leadership development.
Hmm.
You're actually a top voice in LinkedIn in leadership development. So I would like to know and share your experience on helping leaders developing and moving towards a vision and things like that. What has been your experience on doing this, and
Hmm.
how are you helping leaders develop?
Sure. No, good question. So I think for me, I've done a lot of different jobs, right? And I've worked in a lot of different functional areas. So I have a lot of repetition of doing a lot of these different things. And I grew up in a lot of development programs, where companies used to invest, especially on the corporate side, 2 to 5 years to develop to different levels, and to learn all these different things, like different skills, different things about the companies, etc. So, fast forward to today, especially like on the tech side, I really noticed when I switched from corporate to tech, like the lack of this formalized training, right? So, what's valued, I think, on the corporate side is like knowledge, right? And a certain pedigree of doing things a certain way, which then, if you're in corporate, or, you get to a point where you're like, oh, there's so much red tape and like all of this stuff, right? Then you switch to the other side and you go into tech, and it's all about getting stuff done. So people get rewarded for getting things done, and they just do things, and then they get titles, right? So like then what I would see is someone like I don't know, like let's say they're called like chief marketing officer. they're a chief marketing officer. They're running marketing for the company, but they don't have probably 80% of the skills because they don't know what good looks like, right? But they're very good at getting stuff done and they're doing all the marketing, right? So it's very different, right? So they haven't had a lot of training and they don't get a lot of like, people training. They're just constantly doing and on like a bullet train of work. Anyway, so after going kind of through those two, like a very organized way through like, leadership and getting a lot of practice, then going on to the tech side, seeing like, you're working with a different kind of DNA here where people just get stuff done, which is very important to do. It's just a different game. So now when I switched and started working on the leadership side on my own company, I got into executive coaching because, I feel like because there's been so much turnover, especially starting with COVID, like 1 in 2 people were quitting the companies, right, everywhere around the world. And then, there's this constant increase in turnover. Like I think last year was 20%. So 1 in 5 people quit companies, right? So, and then also there's been a lot of inflation, cost pressure, et cetera. So companies are running a lot slimmer and you're being expected to do the same or more, right? So where does that leave our leaders? Like flat out, they're dead. They're like in the, I feel them because I've been that person before, and also like they just don't have anybody to talk to. And then they're also, if you're talking to like a fast growing company, they haven't had any formal training, right? So they don't know like maybe how to even, like, I'm not even talking about like they have leadership scenarios, but even how to present their work. Like I feel like because I grew up in audit, like at one point you present your work all the time. You're constantly saying like, oh, this is what I did. This was what happened. This is what I suggest, whatever, to very senior people that get very angry with you because you're an auditor, right? So like, anyway, so you do a bunch of that and you practice. You work in a strat. I also worked a strategy. You practice. Then you see people trying to present their stuff. You're like, wait a minute, you were like extremely smart, but like, let me help you reposition this, right? So I do a lot of that, and I think that's super fun. And then I help them, just navigate, like how to navigate through kind of like their day-to-day challenges they're having. So I would say it's kind of like an executive in your pocket is what I like to say, is like, I'm just a thought leader to partner with you to talk about like, what are you trying to do? And like, what are some strategies to get there? Right. And I work a lot with like the VP level that reports to CEOs. Like I have several teams that I work with and then some CEOs. So that's kind of where I'm at. And then a couple of high performers is, so I always like people who are happy and action oriented. So they're the best to work with. That's for sure.
Great. Thank you very much for sharing that. But what I'm taking here, I was trying to follow you and write some stuff here, which is one part, which is very important, is training. That's the other one is technology, use technology for everything. And I do believe that right now we fear AI a lot, but I think we need to know how to use AI at our service, especially when it comes to data and things like that, so we can have more information and the information put together in a different way. I loved 3 things that you said. Repetition, which is practice, do, and do, and do, and do. When I do coaching with executives, usually when we do the reflection and we do deep in the mindset, then we start, now what? We need to act. And usually what we do is setting experiments. You're going to experiment with this new mindset or this reframe mindset. And that's what you're saying, practice and repetition. So I love that very much. And reposition the things, it's very important. And navigate, that's very important for a leader, because it's not only navigate the person itself, but also help the team navigate the complexity and all the other stuff. Lovely. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
One final matter that I would like to address here and maybe talk a little bit here is when it comes to leadership, in my experience, what I did is I've been in the corporate life for more than 30 years. I'm still mostly an internal coach. But about 7 years ago, when I started this journey on the coaching, I found that as a leader, developing the coaching competencies was very helpful, very, very helpful. And being aware specifically about those competencies was very, very helpful. And when we talk about the coaching and the different schools that are, but I'm talking about what the ICF has. We talk about competencies like maintaining presence, listening actively, evoking awareness, and embodying a coaching mindset. For me, it was very helpful in my leadership. It really helped me doing a leap change in the way I was leading. So I would like to ask you about your experience in this. What you have seen, what was your experience, and if you are doing something like this in the advisory and the consulting that you do with your company.
Yeah, I think coaching. So my opinion of coaching is that it is part of the modern way to learn, like at work. Because like I explained before, like I think everybody's so busy and like leaders, especially like now, because everybody's almost new in their job. In the last 5 years, everyone's new, right? So like potentially in a company. So that means that they're learning their job, they're a working leader, and they're managing the team, right? Like they're doing work and leading. So because of this, like they need someone to talk to, and their leader's busy, right? So I think it's so helpful. It gives oxygen, it gives a safe space, it gives them a friend, someone in their corner, right? Like I think this is so important, and someone to problem solve with you, right? Because you could go on a course, but it's not helpful to you. Like you're just going to get behind on your work and then need somebody to kind of help you through what you're doing day to day. It's so helpful, right? And it's safe. You're not going to talk to anybody else about this stuff, right? So I'm really more on the like advisory kind of like coaching partner with you. My view is that like I see sometimes companies are like, oh well, we have a coach for everyone. I don't like this actually because I'm like, what? As like, if you're doing that, there's just no consistency, right? Because how could you get, unless you spent a lot of time getting every single coach in your company aligned to your vision and your mission as an organization and really push people to like enjoy working at the company and like to work through problems together, it's not going to work, right? Like they're going to be telling people on your team to quit.
Yeah,
No, they could just leave, right? Like that's the worst. Like for me, so companies who do that and hire these like huge companies of coaches and get one for every single person on the team, I don't really think that works very well. However, I do think it does work to have like one or a small group of coaches that know your company very well and work on performance coaching. So I think performance coaching is the future. If you want to be a really smart company making a smart investment, like get someone who does have business experience, who aligns with your values, can understand how you work really well and your strategic plan, all of that stuff, and have them, be an extension of your team to align people and to help you like drive things forward. So I've seen this model in Canada and in different companies. I'm like, this is the smartest thing I've seen in a while because it's a shift in how we work. You can't expect that the leaders are going to have enough time to lead, right? And to really work with people and work out things with every single person. And then putting people in training courses, everything's so specific,
yeah.
right? So, and there are a lot of people who are experienced. It's just about finding the right, kind of partner for your business. Like choose very wisely.
Yeah, very interesting. You mentioned a couple of things that I want to point out. The first one, when you said that everyone is new at the job, as you were saying, of this rotation and things like that.
Yeah.
I also would like to say that as the environment and the world is changing so quickly and so fast, even if I haven't changed my job, then due to the fact that the information is changing, the world is changing, maybe my job is not the same. Even the same position is not the same next year. So even if you stay in the same position, then your job is going to be different. Okay,
Yeah,
so
that's a good call out.
yeah, so getting adapted to the changes and the environment and this very volatile environment that we have, it is very important as leaders and taking the time to see that, and especially having the way to detect that, having the radar put there and see there are changes and identify them and move them with them, because we need to change at least at the same pace the world is changing. Otherwise, we just are left behind. That was one of the things that I wanted to complement in what you, yeah, in what you said. And I love what you said about performance coaching, because one of the things that you mentioned is some ideas of having a coach for everyone, but not everyone is for coaching too. Because there are some people who are not for coaching. I have seen people, that the organizations that do these leadership development programs, and they make compulsory or an obligation for the people to go through it. And then we see some of those that are just doing it because they have to, but not really deeply on the change they have to do inside. So we need to recognize that. And so we need to identify how each person is and how we can develop it. And also the training, you said that it was very specific. And what I would like to add about that is that usually training is so specific, but at the same time so big that then you need to go out and practice. We go back to the practice that you mentioned at the very beginning. If you don't practice, then you don't absorb it. Okay. So that's why being exposed and doing the things right there where you can do the experiments and you can practice it, it's the way that you can develop. That those are the points that I wanted to point out of everything that you said. Okay, I'm out of questions. I don't know if there is anything that you would like to share here. Usually I would like to keep this space between 30 and 40 minutes, but those I have covered the questions that I had in hand. So I'm out of questions. So I'm here leaving on your hands. So to see what you would like to share here.
Oh, no, thank you. I think it's great. I enjoyed the discussion and enjoyed your perspectives. I think it's really good, the summary that you did, and it complements well, right? Like as we're talking about all these different topics. And again, it goes to you never do anything yourself, right? Like, if Andreas and I were working together on something, we would come up with a really stronger solution than either of us individually, because we have these different perspectives and we can complement each other's thinking, right? So I think it's a good illustration if you went back and watched this again of just like how you can pile on and keep on evolving your thinking. So anyways, I leave you with that thought, and that it's been fun. So who doesn't like having an early morning coffee or a café, I guess, in coffee?
Yeah, el café. Estoy seguro que mucha gente que habla español nos está escuchando y sé que tú hablas muy bien español.
Un poquito. Yeah. Entonces, encantada. Muchas gracias por tenerme aquí hoy.
Okay. Susy, thank you very much for being here. For me, it has been very valuable because I learned a lot from you. I hope the people who joined us today, we have between 25 and 30 people attending. And the people who are watching us in the video, I hope they find it helpful. Thank you very much. It was a pleasure to be here.
Me too. Thanks for having me.
Thank you very much, and thank you for every time.
I just gotta get out most days, you see. I like walking around, it's good for me. Could you tell me where we could go eat? Take me to the good times. I just gotta get out most days, you see. I like walking around, it's good for me. Could you tell me where we could go eat? Take me to the good times. Summer's in Brooklyn, women in age, shaking hands on the rooftop on the MLK. Springtime in